podcasts.
5 Live Boxing.
It's day 5 in Jeddah, the weigh-in day. Alexander Usyk and Anthony Joshua. This is the final time they will meet before they walk out to face each other in the ring. The fight is just hours away. The wait is nearly over. Richie Woodall is with me. We're going to be circulating before and after the weigh-in, talking to as many people as possible. People involved with the fight, people involved from the very centre to the outside, people that have influence, people that have power, and people that have opinions. I'm Steve Bunce, and this is 5 Live Boxing. So you join us about 5 minutes before the official weigh-in of Alexander Usyk and Anthony Joshua inside the King Abdullah Sports Arena on the outskirts of Jeddah, just by the airport. We've already seen all of the undercard weigh-in. Just to my right is the main stage, a massive stage, and on that stage there's officials from the different sanctioning bodies, and of course Barry Hearn is there, ever present, looking splendidly summery, it has to be said. I'm tucked away here next to one of the giant cameras in the middle of the security. Richie's by my side. Richie, we've seen the undercard weigh in and we've seen it build a little bit, and it just feels like there's a little bit of tension in the air now. We feel like we might be getting closer to it. I've seen Michael Buffer backstage. That means we're getting close to the big stuff.
Yeah, bit of tension, Steve. Lots of people are in the arena now. It's not like, let's paint a picture though, it's not like a Ricky Hatton sort of press turnout, is it? You know, weigh-in. But there's not a lot of members of the public here, but there's lots of press. So there are lots of press here. I just seen Roberto Duran sitting, taking his seat.
Roberto Duran and Evander Holyfield sitting at ringside eating dates. That's something I never thought I'd see. But that's what happens when you have a world heavyweight title fight in Jeddah and you can fly in two icons of the sport.
But there is a bit of tension here. But it's good to see the stars that have come out for the weigh-in. But yes, now it's building to see. It was good to see the undercard, people like Callum Smith and Ben Whittaker. He's obviously boxing here as well. So that was great for the British.
And of course, young Ramla Ali, who's going to be featuring in the first female fight to ever take place here in the Kingdom. In all fairness, Richie, I got the sense talking to the boys on Wednesday when you arrived, as good as they were with us, I just got the sense that they were ready to fight. Certainly AJ, he'd had a long time of it. Basically, he's had 11 months since last year. And the same in many ways of Usyk. Not only has he had 11-month wait, he's had 6 months as part of a territorial unit defending his suburb in Kiev. It's very much a case of let's get on the scales, let's get off the scales, and let's just wait the 24 hours before the fight.
Yes, let's get on with it now, Steve, at the end of the day. This week's all about staying focused, staying motivated, staying nice and sharp. And that's what they've got to do, but now it's very, very close. Tension's building, and yeah, we're just minutes away from the actual weigh-in, which will be very interesting to see how they come in. What weight will they be? Will they be lighter or heavier than last time? Because that does indicate on how they're going to actually box.
And the interesting thing about that is there's lots of speculation about that. Just to let people know before we hear the weights, because once the weigh-in starts, we'll hear from Buffer as he announces the weight. Last time, AJ weighed 240 pounds. That's 17 stone 2. Not his heaviest weight. He'd been 7 or 8 pounds or 10 pounds heavier in the past. And Usyk was 221 pounds. That's 15 stone 11. Usyk does look bigger. AJ does look smaller. Richie, if you had to hazard a guess on the difference in weight, what would it be? And the second part of that question is, would it be a factor?
I think it will be a factor, and I don't think that there's going to be a lot in the weight, to be quite honest, because just looking at them, Usyk does look a little bit heavier, and Josh, I mean, his waist he looks so slim, so that would indicate, you know, he knows he's got to move the feet a bit quicker, because we said that before in the last fight, that his feet were far too slow. So definitely he looks lighter, and I think Usyk does look heavier, so I think there's not going to be a lot of difference in the weights, to be quite honest, but obviously the difference is in the height and in the reach of the two guys. You can't get away from that.
Yeah, and of course in the last fight, we've discussed it this week, everybody's talking about it. AJ needs to find that bigness. He needs to be the big man. Evander Holyfield told me that earlier this week. Michael Buffer has just walked onto the stage. If this was Las Vegas and there were 8,000 people here, there would have been a massive roar. If this was Wembley and there were 3,000 people, there would have been a massive roar.
Yeah.
Michael Buffer is on the stage. We are moments away, seconds away He's chit-chatting with Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn splendidly summary, as I described him.
Please
But that's
welcome
fair.
Boxing Hall of Fame, Michael Buffer.
That's Buffer's introduction. Now Buffer will talk.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to the official weigh-in for the main event tomorrow night at the Rage on the Red Sea here in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Let's bring the Warriors to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, he is the challenger tomorrow night. He's an Olympic gold medal champion. His professional record now stands at an outstanding 26 fights, 24 victories, 22 of those 24 victories by knockout, only 2 defeats. He's the 2-time heavyweight world champion, the fighting pride of London, England, the man known as AJ Anthony Joshua.
So there's enough fans inside the arena to welcome those words from Buffer. AJ leading the charge out. He's got his headset tucked behind his ears. There's some music. He's onto the stage now, followed by Freddie Cunningham, followed by his cousin Ben Alimi. His coach, Robert Garcia, and his other coach, Angel Fernandez, are slowly being allowed up onto the stage. Let's go back to Buffer.
Defending champion, also an Olympic gold medal champion. His professional record is a perfect one. 19 fights, 19 victories, 13 wins by knockout. The former undisputed cruiserweight world champion, and currently the reigning and defending undefeated unified heavyweight champion of the world, fighting for and representing the sovereign nation of Ukraine, Alexander Usyk.
Some Usyk fans, as you'd imagine, in the house. Usyk coming in from the other side. He's got his Cossack ponytail. That's a ponytail that comes from the center of his head. He's onto the stage now, surrounded by Egis Klimis, surrounded by Alex Krasuk, and 1 or 2 other members of his team. As you'd expect, Usyk looks relaxed.
First onto the scales will be the former 2-time world champion, now the challenger. He steps onto the scales with that record of 24 victories, 22 wins by knockout, only 2 defeats. From London, England, here is AJ Anthony Joshua.
Eddie Hearn walks to the scales behind Joshua. Joshua steps forward, steps up into the scales. All of the officials from around the globe, from the sanctioning bodies, are leaning over. Let's see what the weight is. Let's get this from Michael Buffer now.
110.9 kilos for the challenger, former 2-time world champion AJ Anthony Joshua. Next onto the scales, his perfect record of 19 fights, 19 wins, 13 KOs, the reigning and defending unified heavyweight world champion, Alexander Usyk.
Usyk steps forward. He's still got his red trousers on. We can marry his weight against Joshua's weight. Let's compare.
100.5 kilos for the reigning and defending champion, Alexander Usyk. Here they are, face-to-face, challenger and champion, the rematch the world has been waiting for. It's all tomorrow night at the Rage on the Red Sea here in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. 12 rounds of boxing for the unified heavyweight championship of the world.
So, Richie, we just got the 2 weights official. Anthony Joshua, 242 pounds. That's 2 pounds more than he was last September. So all that talk about him being a stone lighter. And how about Usyk? Conning all of us about how big he is. He's come in exactly the same, 221 pounds. What's your reaction to that?
My reaction to that is, you can never judge a book by the cover, can you? Because at the end of the day, Steve, when we have seen Usyk this week, he seems to be wearing a lot of clothes. He looked more bulky, most certainly. And when we seen Josh, I can't believe that weight to Josh. He's £2 more because he looks so slim, especially at the waist. He looks even slimmer than what he did before,
Absolutely.
Steve. So yeah, I'm absolutely bemused by it, mate.
So basically, all the speculation, the weeks of endless speculation about the weight, absolutely ridiculous. Just confirmation. Joshua 2 pounds heavier, coming in at 17.4. Usyk coming in at 221, 15.11, an identical weight. So they're just clearing the stage now. Joshua has left the building already. Usyk's left the building. They'll go off now. And members of their team will go to the rules meeting where they select the gloves. Just quickly, Rich, tell me what happens at that meeting. Tell me what happens after the weigh-in, the stuff that we don't see.
Well, they'll actually go to the rules meeting, won't they? And what will happen there is that rules will be explained, but also, Steve, they'll look at the gloves as well. They'll check the gloves. Everyone's got to be happy with the gloves. It's just all things crossing the T's and dotting the I's, mate, at the end of the day.
Yeah, so I've joined now. I've walked over to the stage. Eddie Hearn's here. First of all, they've got to ask you straight away. They've conned us with a weight. What happened to the enormous? What happened to the enormous Usyk and
I'd started to
tiny
convince
AJ?
myself that he was going to come in heavy, back AJ up, walk him down. I'll take all that back now. He's going to fight the same fight.
Exactly
as he did last time.
He's exactly the same weight.
Yeah, I mean,
and
I
AJ's
said
2
to
pounds
AJ,
heavier.
you know, I said to AJ, look at him.
Yeah.
You know, because right now, all that's left to do is just reinforce in AJ's mind he can beat this guy. Yeah. And you know AJ well. You know, he's done the work. Yeah. Now it's just a case of believing it and going out and doing it.
But did you think AJ might come in a bit lighter?
Yeah, not really. I think at this stage, Richie, he trains accordingly for the fight, and what the weight is. I mean, you don't want to come in too heavy.
Optimum
I
weight.
think he wants to come in big and powerful, and he looks pretty big and powerful to me. But you know, when we looked across the stage at Usyk, and I know he's brilliant, and I know he's a pound for pound number one, I just said to AJ, look at his body. Yeah. Like, you've got to take him to hell, mate. You've got to rip that to shreds. And you know, AJ had a couple of words with him up there as well, and you know,
that's interesting. What was said?
He said, "How's your body?" He said, "Yeah, it's good." He went, "Is it?" And you know, you always hear a few stories about sparring and this happened and that happened.
And there have been some stories.
Well, you never know. You know, there's always stories on every side, but it was just to remind him that he's going to be in for a tough night, and that's the key here tomorrow night. Make it uncomfortable.
It's got to be tough and uncomfortable.
It's got to be horrible.
Have you seen any change in AJ this week? Because I thought I liked him on Monday when we sat down. I liked him on Tuesday. What have you seen as the weeks progressed?
Very serious. You know, and I want him to keep that way. You know, normally you'd look to relax a fighter. But actually, in this instance, I mean, you don't want them to get too hyped too early, but you also don't want them to feel like they're on holiday. You know, normally sometimes you'd sort of take a fighter out for dinner and, you know, I'll go to cinema on fight week or go bowling or just like, but this is that you want him edgy. That's the way he's going to win this fight, because he has to fight edgy. He has to fight with that ferocity.
And a bit of fear in his veins, Eddie.
Yeah, I
think
so. He's definitely
better.
afraid. He's afraid of losing.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not afraid
He's
of
afraid of what that means.
He's afraid of losing.
Afraid of losing, yeah.
Because I did an interview with BBC yesterday, and they said to me, I mean, surely if AJ loses, that's the end. I mean, how many comebacks can you have? And I thought to myself, what on earth are you talking about? Yeah. I mean, he's lost to Andy Ruiz, which, look, he shouldn't have, and he's lost to the pound for pound number one. Yeah. He's in his physical prime. He still loves the sport. He's still as hungry as ever. I think he's still improving. Yeah. But he's being written off.
How's that happened, the idea that he's written off and he's finished?
It's what we do. We're Brits, right? We champion you on the way up, but when you win, we don't like you as much. And when you lose, we love you. But then when you lose again, you go, oh, you're rubbish. You know, it's just we're so miserable, aren't we? You know, rather than saying, listen, this is such a great young man who's dedicated, changed his life at a young age, found boxing. Since then, you know, has lived a very... and people don't understand the pressures of the Anthony Joshua world.
Yes.
Like, you know how nice it is to be able just to go out for a coffee or go to the park and have a kick around with your mates? He can't do any of that. And you know him, Richie. Yeah. He'd love to do that more than anything. He's so normal.
That's what he does.
He lives in this pressure cocoon of everyone wanting his time. And of course, he gives everyone his time as well. You know, governing bodies, sponsors, broadcasters, the public,
the people.
And that's one of the reasons why I think he's come out here for 4 or 5 weeks. Yeah. Because he's not getting hassled out here. He's walking freely. He's prepping his mind and everything. And, you know, he's a big believer in the mind. You know, and quite frankly, in the first fight, he was confused.
That let him down.
And the 12 rounds he shared with Alexander Usyk will be very beneficial to him in this fight, because once AJ understands and can digest the information and sort of take it on board, he knows how to execute a game plan. The problem is Usyk's probably going to improve after those 12 rounds with AJ as well. So, but I don't see AJ, honestly, can box a worse fight than
what he did last
time.
September. Yeah. And Usyk really can only box about the same.
Maybe.
That was as good as it gets.
Maybe. I mean, but also he played straight into his... You know, you've got to go back to the Chisora fight, and I know it's Chisora, but Usyk looked so uncomfortable in those first three rounds. But the problem is with Chisora, you know, AJ, for me, has got to find a way to get him back on those ropes. Exactly. And Chisora just sort of cuddled him back. It's not really AJ's style.
No.
But he's got to jab the body, go again. Yeah. And as soon as he touches those ropes, just let the absolute kitchen sink go to the body, to the head. Yeah. He can't afford to be in that little area in the ring that Usyk boxes so well around.
The ring spaces,
When you watch some of those ferocious endings and some of the ferocious rounds against Vladimir and against Povetkin, half of that AJ is what we need to see. Yeah. That loose shot AJ, a bit reckless.
He's a great finisher. And I know he can hurt Usyk. He hurt him in the first fight with nothing, really. But it has to be early, in my opinion. Doesn't necessarily mean he has to win the fight early, but he has to put a dent in early.
Straight away.
You don't put
the early fight is very important.
So
here, isn't it?
First 4 rounds. Yeah. Because if you let this guy get into his rhythm, before you know it, it's round 9, chase him. Round 10,
Absolutely.
4 fights down, 4 rounds down. He's just moving around, winning rounds or scraping through. And it has to be early.
Ed, I don't often ask you this, I don't like doing it, but I'm actually going to ask you for a prediction. How you think it might go and how you think it will end tomorrow?
I honestly think he'll win by knockout. I mean, look, I've never backed against him, and we've been wrong only twice.
Yeah.
But I know he will. If he fights, I know the style he'll fight in tomorrow night.
Yeah.
And I believe that style beats Alexander Usyk. He still is up against a pound for pound great fighter, but I just look at the physicalities, and I looked at him up there, Usyk from the side, and I thought, I'm telling you now, if he lands to the body and he lands clean to the body, this fight is over. He's got to land there. He's got a lot more chance of landing there than he has to the head, by the way.
Yeah, by the way,
he's got to start with a body. It's got to be body-head attacks. And when he stuns him, it's got to be that AJ that we saw against Klitschko, the AJ we saw against Povetkin, the AJ we saw he's one of the best finishers in the division.
Yeah. Just got to get the chance.
He's got to hurt him first.
He's got to do it early. Yeah.
Eddie, thanks so much for your time.
Cheers, guys.
Brilliant. Eddie's now been surrounded by the media. An awful lot of Saudi media wanted to talk to Eddie. The stage is now starting to thin. I've just seen Michael Buffer vanish off in the distance there, Richie. I've seen Sugar Hill Stewart's here, and I'm actually going to try and grab a word with Sugar Hill because I'm intrigued, because he is still officially the trainer of, obviously, the now retired Tyson Fury, but he is the trainer. Sugar, thanks for finding a few seconds. Now, you came in a little bit late. We've seen Ben. Ben's in great form. I've got Richie Woodall here with me. First of all, Sugar, I will ask you about Ben, but I've got to ask you about the two fighters. Did you expect Usyk to maybe be heavier? We're going to continue with the weight thing. Did you expect Usyk to be heavier? And did you expect Joshua to be about the same? What did you expect? What did you expect?
Honestly, I didn't expect that, and only because it's not my fight. So I didn't really expect Usyk to come in heavier.
You weren't really watching
I didn't expect Anthony Joshua to be the same. It didn't cross my mind until you just said it. So I didn't even know that Usyk was heavier. I was talking to Ben Whitaker at the time.
Usyk was the exact same weight, but he put this sense out that he was going to be a stone or 10 pounds heavier. He came in exactly the same pound, and it was Joshua, who looked really slim, we thought was going to come in lighter. He came in 2 pounds heavier. Anyway, you're here with Ben. Are you keeping an eye on this fight in case Tyson Fury reverses his latest retirement, Sugar? It's a simple question.
I'm sure I'll be watching this fight. I'm here in the arena. I'm here in Saudi Arabia. I'm enjoying myself, and I want to be a fan for this fight. Unlike the last fight, which I wasn't really a fan, I was barbecuing. So this will be something different, being live in the arena, and witnessing these two great heavyweights, great fighters fight each other.
Sugar, what do you think Anthony Joshua's got to do differently this time to beat Alexander Usyk?
He's got to throw punches if he wants to win, first of all.
More
but you got to be in position to throw those punches,
yeah.
So that means your feet have to move. Yeah. And I'll just stop there, and I got to go.
You got to go.
Sugar, you go.
Sugar,
you absolutely go.
Thank you.
No, Sugar, you're in trouble, I know. So Sugar's gone to catch up with Ben Whitaker. We should point out that it's only the Olympic silver medalist's second fight. He's fighting an unbeaten guy here. Of course he'll win. And he's not the main attraction, but he's certainly an attraction here. We certainly want to look at him. And I had a chat with Ben earlier on, and he's loving the heat. He's been training in Miami, where it's hot. And he is, I know you've been a fan for several years now. He is a special talent, Reg.
He's very special, Steve. He really is, and it's a great experience for him. His second fight, and he's on. It's an occasion like this.
Massive event.
It's absolutely massive, and you know what? That's Ben Whitaker though, because he's such a stylist, very, very skillful and talented.
Yeah.
He'll be thinking, you know what? This is where I want to be. I want to be top of the bill. I want to be headlining bills like this. So great for Ben Whitaker.
What we've done now, Richie, is we've walked out into the lobby. Off to the left is the dressing rooms. We can't get in that area. And off to the right is the sort of VIP buffet area. We can't get into that area. I'd have to ask you, Rich, right now, which one would you like to go to? The dressing rooms or the buffet area? If I could arrange it somehow with a tricky ticket, which one would you go to?
Tricky ticket,
Tell the
mate.
truth.
Definitely the buffet, because you know what ex-fighters are like, mate. We're always hungry.
Always
and we're always
hungry.
looking for something free.
Let's have a little wander around. There's lots of Joshua's team on one side. There's members of Usyk's team on one side. People wearing Ben Whittaker tracksuits. There's Anthony's father. Oh, yeah. That's Mr. Joshua you can hear in the background. I'm not. We're just doing a 5 Live thing. Would you just like to say hello, Mr. Joshua?
Yes. Mr. Bones.
That's it. Yeah, that's me.
Nice to see you.
Yeah. Good to see you. Last time I saw you was on the street in New York after the terrible Ruiz. You did have a straight face.
And a screwed up face.
I've seen AJ all week. He's perfectly happy. I mean, you must be happy to see him that happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. The victory is ours.
I hope so. Mr. Joshua, thanks very much for your time. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
For all your effort towards boxing. You're a great man. I wish you all the very best.
Thank you very much indeed. I really appreciate that. See you later. That's Anthony Joshua's father talking to me. In fact, the last time we did see him, it was a bit awkward the last time I saw him, Rich. It was the morning after the Ruiz loss, and I was waiting outside a hotel, and he came out and he said hello to me, and I said hello to him, and I didn't want to interview him.
Yeah.
And then I said, I won't interview you, and he said, oh, that's good, but he's obviously, I don't mind talking to him here like that. So, which I think we need to find somewhere quiet to actually do a deep dive and really look and really analyse it. But there's something that we did a couple of days ago that we haven't used, and we should use it now. It's when you and AJ, like a couple of long-lost friends, came face to face. Here's Richie and AJ, rom-com style, just a couple of days ago here in Jeddah.
Josh, you're looking slim. You're looking good.
Yeah. Well, more boxing, more time in boxing, longer runs, 12-round fight, a high-paced 12-round fight. I'm expecting some more runs, and yeah, just more fluidity, not so much bulk to carry around the ring. My legs are just conditioned, yeah, all that type of stuff. I think that the weight and the physique takes form to the training I've been doing.
And Josh, in the last fight, you know what I'm like, I break it down, have a look at it. There were parts of the fight the way you slowed your feet down and he came on. Yeah, exactly. So, obviously, but Josh, at the same time, there were parts of the fight where you went forward and you had success. Are we going to see more of that this one?
I can't say on the radio. It's hard to say. But
okay.
But right, I'm going to look instinctively what's working and then work on that.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Not stick on in one gear the whole fight.
Adapt.
Yeah, I've got to be more adaptive. One gear ain't going to win this fight. You've got to be able to adapt.
And preparation's gone well?
Yeah, it's been challenging. Been really challenging. It's been good. A lot of sparring, a lot of rounds. Been challenging. But you know, I feel like it's just about the night. We all train. All of us train coming up. You train, like, look at the boys in the Commonwealth, the success of GB. It's just about the night. Some win, some don't, so I've got to get it right on the night.
And finally, Josh, positively in terms of mental strength,
That's
you're there for this?
Yeah, I've never really looked at that factor mentally. I said I've always just kind of, yeah, let's just go and have fun. But this is like, I want to win. I want to get stuck in. I want to win.
Do I get 4 questions now? Are they moving me on?
No, of course you do. You get 5.
No, I'm done. You got to go and talk to other people. Yeah, honestly, I'm being honest. I'm being straight. Yeah, because that's the deal with Strike. Because we stick to our word. When we say 3 questions, we mean 3 questions.
3 questions from the public, and next time I speak to you, you can ask me what the public want.
100%. We'll do that, brother. Enjoy yourself on Saturday.
Josh, good luck, man.
So that was Richie with AJ. I love it when those two get together. And you heard AJ there when I was playing the gentleman. AJ said, Bunsey, get the public to send in 4 questions and I'll answer them. I'll get to ask them and he'll answer them. So send those in. Send your questions in for AJ. Hashtag BBC Boxing. It's really simple. Now, Richie's been talking for the last week. He said, don't worry, I'll get hold of Russ. He'll talk us through it. Richie, you've got hold of Russ Anber. You're a happy man.
He's my main man, Russ Anber.
Russ,
Richie, it's good to see you, brother.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Obviously, you've been called in. You've been working with Alexander Usyk, Lomachenko. You've worked with all the great fighters on cuts, on hand wrapping.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Russ, I want to...
Glove making.
Glove making, of course. Rival,
Yeah.
doing so well. Now, for this fight now, do you see anything different in Alexander Usyk at all?
I don't know if I see anything different. I think he's been a guy that's adapted to boxing and boxing on the road probably more than any world champion in existence today, right? Like he's a true road warrior, and he goes into other people's home court.
True champion. True champion.
A true champion, right? Like he's a real road warrior. So I think the difference is going to be an extension of the last fight. I'm looking at this. Forget the stamina of being in the 12th round, but I'm looking at this as AJ going back to his corner and getting new advice, a new strategy to come out for the next round.
Yes.
So I'm looking at it like round 13, notwithstanding the fatigue that you would have in a round 13, but strategy-wise, he's going to come out and try to adapt and do things different to salvage victory. Because if this was the old days, there would have been a 13th round, and he would have had to done something to adapt to that.
Okay.
So that's the way I'm seeing it, and I think that Usyk is capable of adapting as well to whatever strategy AJ is going to impose.
Yes.
So, I think it's going to be a great fight, tactical as well.
And Russ, on the scales, as Usyk pulled wool over everyone's eyes, we all thought that Usyk would come in heavier, and Joshua would come in lighter. But it's quite the opposite in that Usyk has come in more or less the same weight as he did last time. And if anything, Anthony Joshua's a little bit heavier, which that surprised us because we thought with Joshua he's got a faster feet, so surely a lighter frame that would be better. What's your take on the weights?
I'm not sure about Joshua and what he's trained like to do.
Yeah.
I know that Usyk is not going to do anything to which other people would adapt a different strategy. I want to bulk up, No, I think he's just going to train and be natural at his weight and be strong at his weight. So everyone was asking me before the fight, oh, he looks big. We saw pictures. He's bulked up. I said, oh, those pictures were taken a long time ago. They were at war. There's a lot of, and now you're seeing them now. But I think he's going to come in spot on, roughly where he was last time. And, he's at spot on 220. And that's, back in our day, Richie, that's what a heavyweight weighed,
exactly.
right? 220.
Yes.
So,
and Russ, how is he mentally going into the fight?
Listen, I got to tell you this. He's one of the strongest mentally prepared fighters I've ever had the luxury of dealing with. And just to give you an idea of that, and I know it's not about boxing, but it just goes to show you what his mental fortitude is like. The fact that he can hold his breath underwater for 4 minutes and 40
I find that incredible.
seconds. I didn't even think that was humanly possible. And if it was, you would think it would be somebody in aquatics who could do something like that, right?
Yeah.
Not in boxing. But what this shows is that obviously he didn't do that the first time he tried it. This was building up year after year after year. Started off with 30 seconds, then a minute and a half, and just kept going more and more. And the mental strength you have to do that is, I can't even fathom it in my mind. So that, I thought I knew everything going into 43 years in boxing, but this guy's taught me something else.
And Russ, finally, what makes Usyk such a great champion? He can adapt to any style, and he can anticipate what's in front of him.
Yeah.
If Joshua does raise his game, if he uses his jab a little bit more, if he lands a few right hands, Usyk, you think he can cope with any change that Joshua makes?
Yeah, I think that anything Anthony's going to do is going to also leave him open to counter punches. I think the key thing in Usyk's game is that he exploits his southpaw advantage as good as anybody I know. And Richie, you would know that, when the advantage a southpaw could have, and he exploits that. The jab, I think AJ is going to be hard pressed to be effective with the jab against the southpaw. You know how difficult that could be. But the right hand could be the key.
Yeah.
But when you're committing with the right hand, that's the punch that a southpaw looks for to counter. So when you start committing to those kind of things, it's a give and take. And I think that's what makes the matchup so bloody exciting. I think that's what makes it so great, that there's people think that either guy could win, and that's what rematches are all about.
Well, Russ, I sincerely hope that our man wins.
Well, of course you do.
But I wish you all the luck in the world as well, because I know you're a great guy.
Well, I appreciate it, Richie. And the other thing that people have to understand is this reminds me of the weight that Joe Louis carried on his shoulders, June 22nd, 1938, when he faced Max Schmeling, he carried the weight of the free world on his shoulders. And this is an opportunity for Usyk to, going back to his mental strength, this goes back to show just he's fighting for his nation. His nation is on the pressure is on him, and it's something he's relishing right now to fight for Ukraine and carry the world on his shoulders, his world on his shoulders.
I love that at the press conference, Russ, with the national costume. He had the Cossack, and it means so much to him,
it does.
You say. It means
and
everything.
that shows how mentally strong he is. Other people might have crumbled under that pressure. He's embracing it, and he's using it for fuel.
Thank you, Russ.
Thanks, Richie.
By the way, Richie, let me just tell you, that story there, Russ is right. The entire American nation needed Joe Louis to beat the German. He'd already beaten Louis. We knew we were going to war. And there was a lot of things being said about Schmeling that may not have been true, linking him with the people that were running Germany at the time. And Joe beat him, and a nation rejoiced. Russ, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much, Buns. Thanks.
Let me just tell you this. Whilst you've been talking to Richie, there have been different people wandering around, including members of the Usyk team, looking for the rules meeting, where I know you've got to be. You're a central part of it. So I'm going to let you go and find it.
It's okay. They've thrown us out of there already. They kept the lawyer in there and threw me out, so it's okay.
That's
no problem.
outrageous.
But I know where it is.
Surely Alexander Usyk will be using rival gloves?
Yes, he will.
Oh,
be.
of course.
Yes,
the main man.
Indeed.
Russ, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much,
today.
guys.
Russ, thank you,
It's
mate.
always a
God
pleasure,
bless,
man. It's
Bob.
always good to see you.
Everything I said, Richie, about let's go and find somewhere quiet because we keep running a good guess. Erase that because Barry Hearn's there. Last time Barry and you were together, you were discussing £25 carp in Barry's special pond and the names they've got and how many you've got.
Proper
and Richie
sport,
was
Barry?
so excited and you were so excited. It was outrageous.
I've just come back from British Columbia in the wilderness fishing
You've been
for
on that
salmon.
trip?
Yeah, nearly killed me.
Really?
I've discovered I'm a bit too old for this. I couldn't walk for a week.
You're still playing cricket while you're talking about Barry?
I know, but I'm getting injured every game, Richie. It's killing me.
And so before we get onto the boxing's good, but I want to, because we talked about that trip. How was it? How was the salmon fishing in Alaska?
The salmon fishing was decent without being great. We got 30 odd or something like that, which is not bad. But the 8 years ago on my first trip there, we got 120. Wow. So I'm not sure if that's climate or just the fact that the water was a bit lower than normal. But it was just a fabulous experience. As you get older, you get a bit more reflective, and I start watching eagles. I start watching.
Did you see any bears?
Saw loads of bears.
Fantastic.
Walked down a bear and I saw a family of orca whales which got the helicopter just to circle.
Brilliant.
And then I saw the most amazing thing I've ever seen: a deer swimming on his own between one island and the next, which is about a mile.
Wow.
I've seen that on TV and I always thought it was staged.
No, I never even saw it until I looked in the water. It's a bloody deer's head.
That's incredible.
Brilliant.
Barry,
and then from there to Jeddah, really.
And from there to Jeddah, and you've walked into a carnival of weight. I've got to ask you a question about weight, because weight over the years has been a factor with some of the big fights that you've been involved with over the last 30 years. Were you surprised that Usyk, having maybe conned us a little bit into believing he was going to come in heavy?
No, it's the normal games, isn't it? Absolutely. Who believes that? You get all these opinions in boxing. Most of them don't know what the bloody hell they're talking about. There's thousands of them. And good luck. I'm glad they've got an opinion because it gives them an interest in the fight. But of course, it's completely unjustified. Usyk's a professional, surrounded by professionals. I wouldn't have been surprised if he'd have come in a couple of pound heavier.
Yeah.
But more than that, he'd lose his speed. He'd lose the whole way he's built his amateur career, building up, looking at his feet. Everything comes from weight. No surprise at all. And Joshua, 4 pound heavier. Yeah, well, a new team, probably tried a few new things. Yeah. Not significant in the slightest. Isn't it? Either way, it's not going to affect the fight at all.
Over the years, Barry, you've promoted some amazing British fights that changed British boxing as far as I'm concerned, and some other fights, rematches sometimes. Have you ever been involved with a fight where the guy who lost the first fight or going into the fight just has to win? He has to win to preserve lots of things. Not his bank account, but just to get himself back on track. If
you see, I don't even engage that conversation. He has to win.
Oh, brilliant.
I just don't see there's any sense in it. He has to do the best he can do. And when you're at the ultimate, when you're at the peak, when you're dealing with proper people, if he was boxing me, he has to win. If he was boxing you, he has to win. He's boxing Alexander Usyk, one of the great fighters of all time. And what happens is he does his best. And if his best is good enough, he will win. And if he doesn't, he won't win. And by the way, he's a professional thinking man, as we know, and he will look at the heavyweight scene, which he has probably contributed more than anyone
Absolutely.
to, and say there is a plethora of amazing fights out there. Have I had enough of boxing? If the answer is no, he carries on. If the answer is yes, and it's not a monetary issue, he had enough money to retire several fights ago.
It's about desire, Barry, and it's his
purely
desire.
about what gets you out of bed in the morning. And at the moment, I sincerely believe, win, lose or draw, he carries on. And why shouldn't he? With Dylan White, with Tyson Fury, with Joyce, with
Wilder. Just keep naming them.
And, you know, we've created, and I think, I'm going to say Eddie and him have changed boxing in this country. And it all changes from the heavyweight downwards. Because
10-year revolution.
That's the focus of people's attention, the casual fan. And then you come up with fights like Ben Eubank, and the casual fan becomes hardcore traditionalist. Oh, my dad told me about that. I remember that. That was...
Or my granddad.
It's getting that way.
Yeah, I know.
But, you know, that's what we sometimes get involved with, the minutiae, without considering the quantum move that the sport has made.
Yeah.
And that has triggered off a whole different news. So you'll get professional fighters, like Josh said, I'm a professional fighter. Win, lose or draw. I'll stop, not when I've got enough money, because that's already passed. I'll stop when I've had enough.
Barry, I agree with you that he's got to do the best he can possibly do, but he's got to do it differently this time, hasn't he?
I think he's got to do it slightly different. But the worst thing you can do is go from panic to panic.
Okay.
You know? There is no halfway stage in life between complacency and panic.
Right.
You're one or the other. Last time, a little bit too technical, a little bit too complacent in work rate, feet movement, arm movement, attitude. Probably only hit Usyk 4 times in the entire fight with heavy punches. Yeah, that is not enough to dissuade your opponent from looking very good. Yeah. And Usyk looked very good. Yeah. He looked unbeatable, let's be honest. So you don't now change your tactics at 360 degrees. New team, some changes. I see Joshua winning this fight on points.
Really, Barry?
Because I don't
Not
see
many
it.
people do.
No, I know. Well,
they say knockout. If Josh is going to win,
he's not very many people.
And at least I'll be wrong uniquely, you know. But the fact is, when I look at it, I don't see Usyk taking chances early doors.
No.
And I see Joshua being a little more aggressive than ever, enough to win points.
Yeah.
And then I see Usyk in the middle rounds thinking, I've got to get going. If Joshua's stamina is as good as they tell me his stamina is, and he can do the 12 rounds, and he can continue having that front foot advantage, but it's not a punch-up outside a pub on a Saturday night.
No. Yeah.
It's going to still be, I think, quite clinical, and I don't think it's going to be perhaps as exciting as people think, but I think it's going to be a fight where Joshua's got a different game plan in terms of activity. And the speed,
and you think Josh wins on points?
I think he's got to close his distance down.
Definitely.
And he didn't do it last time, so he didn't land. And I think it would help if in rounds 1 to 4, he could land at least 4 punches that got Usyk's brain thinking...
Careful here.
Be careful here. Fight. This is a different fight.
Yeah. Listen, that's a brilliant analysis. We've got an update.
I don't want it to be too good because I like you two and I'd like you to stay in the job for a little bit longer.
Yeah, at least a few years. We've had a good discussion about that.
Because honestly, I haven't got the time. I'm playing cricket.
I'll let you in a secret. If we stay in the job another 5 years, Richie and I are going in that helicopter to Alaska. We're going to see those bears. We're going to circle those orcas, and we're going to watch in wonderment as a giant stag makes its way from one island to another, and we're going to marvel at a basket full of fresh salmon. That's just about as good as it gets, Barry.
I mean, the BBC have got enough problems other than thinking they've got to put up with you two for 5 more years.
Yeah, and it was going to be a BBC show. Thanks, Barry, for that. We were doing really well.
When we go in carp fishing, Barry? When we going carp fishing?
Well, we're going to go soon, but I think I'm going. I know Friday. I'm off out on the boat Friday. I'm trying to get some skate. I've got to learn how to cook skate properly. I keep catching skate and messing up the cooking.
Okay.
But the water level in my lake at home is so low.
Yeah.
I'm really leaving them alone.
Yeah.
Just got the aerators on 24 hours a day and trying to get through it.
Yeah.
We need some rain, but so do the farmers. There we are.
You know what? Only in Jeddah. Barry,
okay,
thanks very
Always
much.
Barry,
thank
well
you.
done. Cheers, man. Cheers.
Thanks, Barry.
Thank you, Barry.
Cheers,
Thanks
mate.
very much indeed. Richie, one day you and I in Alaska. Richie, at some point in this show, we're going to have to actually preview the fight. You and I are going to have to preview the fight. We've heard from Russ Anber, he was brilliant. We heard from Barry Hearn there, he was brilliant. Before you and I go any further, that was really interesting, Barry's suggestion, Barry's outline. I found that really interesting.
That was a different take completely for me as well, Steve, a different take on the fight. I haven't heard that from anyone. No, I don't think I've heard it from anyone yet that they think that Anthony Joshua will win on points. People who I've spoke to that think Joshua's going to win.
The stamina thing's quite interesting.
Yeah,
we have been hearing about that. So.
Yeah. Well, and he's convinced that he can win on points, and that's the first for me. I don't agree with him, by the way. I think if Anthony Joshua is going to win the fight, then I think he's got to put it on Usyk and he's got to get a stoppage or a knockout. That's the way. Because I don't think there's a heavyweight in the world. Actually, there probably is one. That would be Tyson Fury that could win on points against Alexander Usyk. But anyone else, I don't think there's anyone out there that could win on points. Tyson Fury is a different kettle of fish.
It is interesting. It is interesting, this sort of idea that he's just got to put it on him. Now, the thing with that, of course, is that we all think we know what that means. And it's being thrown around casually. But here's the thing, and I think AJ knows exactly what he's got to do. But can he actually do it? Can we see enough of him moving his foot a little bit, showing shots, and being a whole lot smarter? Can he do it, Richie? You've been around him. You've seen his improvement, tiny improvement over the years, from the European Championships in 2011, the World Amateur Championships, Baku 2011, the Olympics 2012, turning pro. You've seen that slow progression. Can he tinker enough to be a very different man this time round?
Well, Steve, I will say this. If he doesn't tinker enough, and if he doesn't tinker about with it, and he doesn't do things differently this time, and he doesn't do the things that we're all hoping he does, moving the feet in quicker, using the jab a lot more, setting a better pace, standing and well balanced rather than leaning over. If he doesn't do those things, he'll get beat again. So he's got to change. He has basically got to change. And that's why I think we see a different Anthony Joshua this week. He seems very focused. I've hardly seen Anthony Joshua smile this week.
No.
When normally he's smiling to everyone, shaking everyone's hands. He's a people's person.
I'm on your side.
Totally
We've seen a very different AJ this week.
Different
bloke.
A
guy that's not particularly warm. He's business-like, and I'm a big fan of that. I do agree, and I have been talking about some of the things that some things that Barry did say there, which is he doesn't need to do massively different, but he does need to do different. Barry's working on the theory that in that first fight, when one of the scores was only by 2 rounds, that with half a dozen more jabs in a round and 4 or 5 big right hands, you could nick it. I think that's a dangerous game against Usyk. I think you've got to do more than just be busier than you were in the first fight. Well, that's my gut feeling.
Yes, exactly. And one thing what Russ Anber says, he says, Richie, you know about orthodox and southpaw boxing. It's a battle of the jab, and most of the time it's the southpaw boxer that uses the jab better than the orthodox boxer. But you see, I totally agree. And we watched the first fight back, Steve. Usyk was fantastic with his jab. Yeah. He was brilliant. And yet he's in against a man who's taller and has got a longer reach. And yet he was out jabbing Anthony Joshua.
So what can Joshua do simply to negate, to stop that southpaw jab? That means he leads with his right hand as opposed to Joshua being an orthodox fighter leading with his left hand. What can he do, Richie?
So what he's got to do, Steve, in my opinion, is he has got to use his lead hand more. He's got to get his feet into range. He's the taller man. It's basic stuff, Steve. If you're taller and you have the height and reach over an opponent, you can hit him and land your shot before he can hit you because you have the height and reach advantage. You've just got to get your feet into the position to do that. And they've got to be quick.
So it's an adjustment with his entire body before he lets the shot go.
Front hand, front foot working together in tandem with each other. Okay. And he's got to throw not 1 or 2 jabs more, Steve. He's probably got to throw 10 to 15 jabs at least more in every single round, because what that will do, it does 2 or 3 things throwing the jab. It not only scores you points when you hit the target, it disrupts the rhythm of the opponent. Yeah. And if you can disrupt the rhythm of Alexander Usyk, then you've got a chance of beating him. Thirdly, Steve, go on, just continuing on, what it also does is it sets you up better then to land your right hand.
Which is the shot that should follow that jab once you've backed him up slightly.
And the southpaw opponent, can't see the right hand coming as much because he's occupied with the jab, the lead hand. But when you're throwing a single right hand from a long way out, He can see it. Usyk, it's bread and butter stuff for Usyk. Any fighter in front of him who's an orthodox, who's throwing a single right hand from way back there, he sees it coming, he anticipates it, he makes you fall short, and he counters. He's a master.
Now, what someone might be asking, having listened to our 5 pods this week and having listened to us talk before, they might say, well, hold on a minute. If he's already been an Olympic champion, if he's already had 11 or 10 world title fights by the time he got in the ring with Usyk last week, why didn't he move his feet a little bit closer and land with that jab last year? And I'll ask you the same question. Why did he get it? Well, not so wrong, because he lost on points and one of the scores was tight enough, and he didn't. Well, not like he was hurt apart from the last 20 seconds. So why didn't he do it differently or more last year?
Because, Steve, I think it was in his head in the last fight. He even says it as well, that he wanted to try and he was convinced in his own mind that he could outbox Usyk. Now that's dangerous stuff. He thought he could outbox Usyk. And Steve, to outbox Usyk, that is the ultimate victory, in my opinion. Better than a knockout, because you're beating him at his game.
And a game that he has mastered through nearly 400 amateur contests, Europeans, Worlds, Olympics, World Championship fights all the way through his 19 fight unbeaten career. Because that's why Joshua talked the other day about, remember the rope-a-dope he said? That's the rumble in the jungle. Muhammad Ali against George Foreman. And Ali came out the first round, landed a big right hand, and then sat on the ropes. Rope-a-dope. He was roping the dope, who was George Foreman. And everybody screamed, get off the ropes, in Ali's corner. Angela Dundee said, get off the ropes. What are you doing, son? And Ali said, no, I know what I'm doing. The commentators were nearly in tears. You're going to get him, you're going to get killed. Get off those ropes. And Foreman whacked away, whacked away. Well, you know the end of the story. Foreman runs out of steam. Ali hits him with a good right hand, knocks him spark out. Absolutely brilliant. Rope-a-dope worked. And it was something he did. It was instinctive. And so when AJ went into that first fight and did something that really they hadn't really planned for. That was him. And he got it wrong then. This time, he's got to listen to his version of Angela Dundee, who's Robert Garcia, and get it right, correct it, get a bit closer, let the hands go, push him back. Meanwhile, Usyk, I think, is unbelievably confident. Unbelievably confident, Rich.
I totally agree with you. On that stage, on the weigh-in, Anthony Joshua, he looked a little bit nervous, which I think is good, by the way. I hope he's scared.
I like a bit of fear.
I hope he's scared.
So do I
hope there's a bit of fear going through his veins, because he will box what they call with the eye of the tiger, that bit of edge, and that is what is needed here.
Richie.
He shouldn't be going into it really super confident. Go in there with a bit of fear. And you know what, Steve? It's not fear of the opponent. No. Anthony Joshua isn't scared of Alexander Usyk. What he is feared and scared of is losing. The situation of losing, Steve, being humiliated in the first round. That's what used to go through my mind all the time.
Oh, when you went out?
When I went out there.
I don't mind if I lose. I don't want to lose, but I don't want to lose in the first round.
People said to me, was you scared of Calzaghe? I said, no, I wasn't scared of Joe Calzaghe. I was just scared in the first round of getting stopped. Being humiliated and stopped. Now, I'll admit that, but I was never scared of an opponent. And boxers aren't. You're not scared of the opponent. You're scared of the situation you're in and how you lose.
That's a brilliant observation, Richie.
And when you fight with that fear, that makes you fight better, Steve.
So let's get to it now. Let's get to that first bell. We've already said today that AJ on the stage, look, maybe not as relaxed and confidently as he has a week, but then we both agreed that we like that. Because we want to see that sense of fear, the trepidation. We want to see it. We want to see it big style. So we're inside this arena. I'm looking through the door there. In fact, we can see the ring from where we're standing here. They're just doing some final touches. They're dressing the ring. They're dressing the arena. They're getting it ready for tomorrow, 13,000 or whatever it's going to be inside there. We won't get to see AJ before the first bell, but we'll get to see him. He'll walk first. He's the challenger. What are you looking for in that AJ walk with that familiar white gown, which you told him all those 10 years ago?
I told him.
Full-length white gown with a white hood.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are you looking for, Richie, in his walk to the ring?
What I'm looking for is, I'm certainly not looking for a similar walk, for the ring walk from the first fight, where he's literally
kissing babies and holding hands.
Absolutely shaking everyone's hands as he's going to the ring. He must have touched about 100 hands going
about
to the
that,
ring.
yeah.
It was unbelievable.
20 people he knew.
You know, and then he give a lady a kiss in the going to the ring as well. It was an incredible smiling. What I'm hoping to see, Steve, is invisible blinkers on this time.
Bosh.
Focused, his eyes
Yeah.
set on that ring, getting to the ring and waiting for that bell to go, mate. And forget about you know the distractions. Get them out your head.
Yeah.
Get them invisible blinkers on and just get to the ring and keep focused and get in there. And then when the opponent comes in, you stare at him and let's get it on, mate.
Yeah. So, Richie, that takes us up to tomorrow night. You've said what you want to see him look like, and I've told you how Usyk's going to look. And then Michael Buffer's going to get in the ring. Now, before we actually talk about what happens when Buffer takes his mic, I caught up with Buffer the other day, Michael. He should be Sir Buffer. He should be Lord Buffer. He should be Buffer the King. I caught up with Buffer the other day, who I love to talk to. And I just asked him a simple question. And it was a lovely question, I think. I had to get close to him. I said, Michael, do you still get nervous when you get into the ring?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, you know, the whole thing started because I was a fan. And, you know, many years ago, 40 years ago, I thought, wow, this is a great way to get to see the fight without having to pay for a ticket. And, you know, there's fights like a fight like this. I'll do the introductions, and I can't wait to get out of the ring to watch the fight.
Yeah. And get that great seat that you have, generally about 6 feet to my left, which is a good seat.
Yeah.
Anyone in front of me, anyone in front of me is doing very well.
Right.
When we're in places like this, exotic locations, overseas locations, does that add something special to it? I mean, as good as Las Vegas and New York and Atlantic City is it special when you're somewhere where we've never been, basically?
Yeah, because it's, you know, there's something exotic about this, you know. And the thing about, you know, going into this, and I'm sure you've heard it back home, people are talking about politics and this and that. The heavyweight championship of the world transcends borders, politics. You put it all aside because it's the greatest title in all of sports. For 150 years, it's been that way. You know, from John L. Sullivan to Joe Louis and Rocky Marciano and Lennox, Evander, Ali, Smokin' Joe. We all know those names, and they all transcend all sports.
And in Saudi here, I've watched you around the world. I've watched you. You get really well treated, and people love you. But the people here, they're literally bowing as you walk through. I mean, you must be humbled by that, Michael.
I really am. It's very flattering. I mean, I've had moments in my life that I've just are they talking to me? You know, it's like.
Is there someone behind me?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give an example. This goes back to when Tyson was fighting Larry Holmes, and we had the weigh-in at some guy named Donald Trump, his hotel in Atlantic City. And I was backstage, and Kirk Douglas was standing there, like, you know, after the weigh-in. And I was thinking, like, how can I get up an excuse to go over and introduce myself to Kirk Douglas?
Oh, wow.
And all of a sudden, he's standing there, and in that Kirk Douglas voice, he says, "Hi, Mike, Kirk Douglas. I've watched him many times." And I'm thinking, I couldn't even speak. I'm like, Kirk Douglas knows my name. Holy shit. Yeah, I'm sorry. Pardon me. But it was amazing.
Oh, that's the story I want. That's it. Michael, it's been a pleasure and a delight talking to you again.
All right, thank you so much.
No, thank you. The great Michael Buffer there, finishing like he can with a Kirk Douglas story. There he is in awe of Kirk Douglas, and Kirk Douglas walks over. It turns out he's a Buffer fan. I'm going to ask you, Richie Woodall, has that ever happened to you, where you've been somewhere and you've seen someone who's like, oh, unbelievable, but then he or she comes over? Have you ever had that?
I have indeed, yeah. My favourite fighter growing up was Marvin Hagler. And
Sir Hagler to you, sir.
Absolutely marvellous Marvin Hagler. And when Audley Harrison won his gold in 2000, obviously he turned pro, and the BBC, you know, went into professional boxing, and they used Marvin Hagler as a pundit. So I'm part of the talent team also. Marvellous Marvin comes over, and then comes over. He's the co-commentator for one of the Audley fights. We go back to our hotel with Marvin, and his room is next to mine. So listen to this. At 1 o'clock in the morning, I get a knock on the door. And standing there is marvellous Marvin Hagler. And he says, "Richie, are you up?" And I said, "Well, I am now, Marv.
Marv. I am now Sir Marv.
He says, well, I haven't told anyone. He says, it's my birthday today. He says, I want to go out on the town. Can you show me around? I said,
Get out of here, Richie Woodall.
Absolutely. And I'm
name dropping Telford so and
I'm
so.
from Telford, rural Shropshire. And I said to him, he said, do you know London? I said, no, like the back of my hand, Marv, no problem.
Not a clue. You didn't have a clue.
I haven't got a clue. So
Not a Scooby-Doo.
I quickly rang Jim Neely, the main commentator. He met us in reception. We jumped in a cab, and he said to me, turned around to me, he said, Richie, I've got a friend who's got a couple of nightclubs in the West End. He says, Peter Stringfellow. He said, do you know him? And I went, only in passing, Marv. Only in passing. He says, well, that's where I want to go. We headed to Stringfellows. The word got to the club that Marvin Hagler was in town. And Steve, it was like walking with Moses parting the waves. As we walked through Stringfellows in the West End. We sat drinking red wine, and all I could talk about was the Hagler Hearns fight, Sugar Ray Leonard, the Duran fight. And at the end of the night, he said, Richie, I know you love your boxing. He says, but will you shut up now? He said, because I want to enjoy my wine.
Oh, that's brilliant.
How about that, Steve?
And I know that's true because about 18 years later, when you and I did the first of the shows we did with him, I remember then he found me an oddity, and he was really, and I loved being around him because he was one of my heroes. But he loved you. It was outrageous. I was going to do a story, but I'm not going to now because how do you trump that story? So tomorrow night, Buffer will introduce them. Then the ring will clear. Just the ref, just the two of them, just the anticipation. And at that point, the wait will be over. Nearly 12 months. A bad 12 months for Usyk and his people in Ukraine. And I would argue a bad 12 months for Joshua. Clearing his head, clearing out his camp, clearing the way for, I think it will be a good fight. I think it will be a memorable fight. It'll be Usyk, it'll be Joshua. It'll be here at the King Abdullah Sports City in Jeddah by the Red Sea in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And when the fight's over, we will have a pod out as soon as possible, celebrating whatever happens. That's what we do. That's how we do it. It's been a great week. Richie, you've been brilliant. Everybody here, everybody we've spoken to this week on the pod has been brilliant. Well, hope you've enjoyed it. It's just the wait now. And then the 12 rounds, or the 4 rounds, or the 6 rounds. Thanks for listening.
Let's get ready to rumble!
5 Live Boxing.